We had a frost last night, and it's not the first of the year, but that is absolutely destroyed now. Okay, so this is now where I'm growing potatoes, and this is at the moment experimental. Hi friends, welcome to Sunflower Hill. I'm Tina, I'm a single mum homesteading in Victoria, Australia. And today I want to share with you this wonderful creation, which is an upcycled tank. So an old water tank, an old corrugated iron water tank, which I have turned into a potato garden. Now this tank was one that I got for free, I think, off Facebook buy swap sell, or I might have paid a tiny amount for it. It was very cheap anyway, and the guy very kindly cut it in half for me at the time so I could transport it back on my trailer. The idea of getting these half tanks was actually to make, for those guys, the geese, to make little houses for the geese, but it didn't work out so well for them for various reasons. So I had them sitting here, and I had potatoes in a different spot previously, and I'm going to show you all that in the video. But I wanted potatoes in some sort of garden bed, in an above, like, raised garden bed, partly for comfort for me, but largely also because there's no tree roots to compete with your potato crop, which there certainly was in the previous spot. I planted it too close to a gum tree, and they are going to suck every bit of nutrient out of the soil. So there was just way too much root competition in that spot. So come with me now and have a look at the build and what I've done with the old tank. I've sort of designed it so cleverly so that it all works, and so that I have two sections so I can harvest one and be growing in the other. And it also, the way it's built enables me to cover it in winter and keep the plants going. All right, let's go have a look. This is some of the potatoes they've eaten. They've actually eaten quite a lot. You wouldn't think so, but geese and ducks really love potatoes. So yeah, protect your potato patch from the geese and ducks, because apparently raw potatoes are a delicious snack. And they will get in here and they will dig up every last one given long enough. We had a frost last night, and it's not the first of the year, but it sort of got less frosty for a while, and we had some rain, still not anywhere near the normal amount of rain we'd have at this time of year, but better than nothing. But over the last few days we've actually had some cold weather, again some clear days with frosty nights, and this is what remains of the potato garden that I used to have. And the last couple of potatoes here, that is probably a little plant that's actually resurfaced. As you can see, there's still potatoes left here from when I used to grow them here, and that is absolutely destroyed now. So the rest of the potatoes were destroyed in the first lot of frosts, probably 3 or 4 weeks ago. So there's no there's no potatoes actually still growing here anymore. As you can see, most of it's just bare potatoes that have regrown over the last month or so, where it was more mild and rainy, have now been, that colour means that they've been killed by frost. So this area here behind the greenhouse bus is where I had the original potato garden, and it's where I situated the new potato garden, which I'm going to show you now. And that was made out of a tank, a water tank. Let's go and have a look at that now. And in contrast, let's see how the potatoes in there have fared in this frost. Okay, so this is now where I'm growing potatoes, and this is at the moment experimental, but certainly I have managed to keep potatoes alive in there all through winter. And these are things that I just put in right at the end of autumn, so they haven't had a chance to grow. But if you look in contrast to the the little dead ones over there. Firstly, you'll see that I'm going to give you an overview of this, how I did this whole thing and what it's made of. But the most important thing over winter is that I've been able to put greenhouse plastic over the top of it. Now I'm going to do a much better job of this. I have plans for this to make it better, but even just draped over and weighted down like this with bricks and a log, so very, very simple, and it's not even closed at the front. It has managed to protect, and there is some condensation there, so I'll try not to get the camera too wet, but have a look at that. So that's the potatoes growing in here as opposed to the ones growing out there. So basically it's protected them from the frost. They haven't died off, and my plan is in future years to have this growing earlier, have nice big plants and keep the plants actually growing and producing potatoes over winter. I don't know how I'm going to go with that, but that's my plan. And at the very least, I can keep the plants going over winter, and in spring they'll just take right off and I'll have potatoes much earlier. But certainly you can see the difference. They're growing. They have not been killed off by the frost, because potato foliage is actually very frost sensitive. It's one of the first things to be knocked off by frost in autumn, or late autumn or winter when we get the first frosts. So this it kind of looks a bit messy on camera, but it actually is a lot less messy in real life. It's a construction that's made out of an old water tank. I got 2 old water tanks. Oh, the horses are hungry. I better go feed them soon. But I got 2 old water tanks that I bought. They were very similar, pretty much the same size as this one here. Around here, a lot of the farms had galvanized water tanks back in the day, and you can get them free, or I think I might have paid $50 for both. Free or very cheap. So that's a really good resource if you're able to go and pick it up. And the original water tanks that I bought were this sort of size. So the guy was kind enough to cut them in half for me. So literally just cut them in half straight up and down. And the idea was to use them for humpies, for little shelters for my geese and chooks. And if you have a look at the Emporium video, one of them is serving that purpose in the chicken emporium. So they've got a little house there. There should be another one around somewhere. It must be somewhere. So there were 4. Now I have 3. There must be one somewhere else. They ended up not doing the best job as little shelters for the geese, because they fought over them at breeding time. So I'd wind up with only 1 pair of geese taking over the humpy that could actually fit, and should have fit more like 3 pairs. They just didn't work particularly well, and they're not very movable. I move my geese around a fair bit so they can take advantage of wherever there's grass. They're not actually meant to be up here, but they're waiting for their breakfast. So you can see they just wander around and graze wherever there's grass. I have different areas that I put them in. So the humpies didn't turn out to be very useful because they're not very mobile. So I wound up not using them for the geese, and it meant I had these wonderful half tanks for something else. And I wound up deciding that given how hard it is on my body to actually bend down constantly and dig into the soil, I would turn them into a raised garden bed for the potatoes. So initially that was over in the area that I showed you before, behind this bus where I was growing potatoes. And I'm going to put some old footage in, both of where I was growing potatoes in ground there, and of the original construction when I started it over there, because it's much more clear. If you have a look at it when it was being built, you can see that it was made of the 2 halves. So I got the kids' dad to help me move them, but it's just the 2 halves I put together in a sort of not quite a horseshoe shape, a horseshoe with a bump in it, like a W shape. And that served the purpose of creating 2 separate areas. So I'll be able to rotate. I'll be able to grow potatoes in one side, or grow potatoes in both sides, harvest one and replant it, and then have the other one still going. So basically I'll be able to stagger the potato yield. And the problem with situating it over there in the first instance was that it got weedy and it's cut off from the geese. So I'm going to open all that up again, but it was a snake hazard. Hello. Interrupting geese. So it was a snake hazard because it was very hard to get in there and mow around that. And I really have worked very hard on changing the garden around and reducing and eliminating snake hazards as much as you possibly can. So that ended up not being the spot I wanted to use, and I ended up moving it over here, which is very close, and it has the advantage of being right near the house. It's actually really, really good if you can situate things that you use a lot as close to the house as possible. This is really close, and we do use a lot of potatoes. Crikey. So let me show you now how it looks now, because it's actually super functional. It's a bit hard to show you without taking this off. So you can see in here, there's 2 halves of the tank. There's one half there, and the other half is where I have potatoes growing right now. And very, very simply, they have just been put in with star pickets. You could do this in lots of ways. You know, a nicer way to do it would be with wooden posts. There's a wooden post here. So they're just 2 halves, a wooden post here, and I've put in straight panels of, again, reused roofing iron. I think that was off a fence. I bought a load of that for my fence. In a V shape inside it to hold the garden beds in. So it's actually a very simple design, but it's actually really effective. Now I've filled that up with compost, and that means it's still composting. It's partially compost, it's partially soil, it's partially bedding from the chook pens and duck pens. Whatever I've had on hand, I've put in there, and you can see this has subsided quite a lot over here. It's subsided probably about, I don't know, 30 centimetres. It's because it has composted. So there was a lot of old boxes and things like that down there which have subsided. That's completely 100% fine. I'm just going to let this crop of potatoes grow in here, and then once they're finished, and in fact as they grow, it's good to mound more compost and more mulch up on top of them. So I'll probably just do that, and it will just keep, you know, building on itself. But it becomes this very, very rich bed, and I should hopefully have that. It's a depth of about maybe 60 centimetres, 2 feet deep altogether. So it should be actually a really good growing space for potatoes. You should be able to get absolutely heaps and heaps and heaps of spuds in there, and they should be relatively easy to harvest. I find that much easier, that height, I find that much easier for harvesting than getting down on my hands and knees and digging them out of the ground. So very simple system, but the best part of it, oh, thanks, that's super helpful. The best part of it is that I can put this greenhouse plastic over the top of it, and it's protected it from frost. And I really wanted something where I could just grow all year, grow potatoes all year. My main aim, I had 2 main aims with this. Firstly, it was to have potatoes in a system where I didn't have to bend down, and the second was to have potatoes all year, or at least to be able to leave them there and harvest them through the winter. I don't harvest potatoes all in one go. I sort of bandicoot, just basically digging around with your fingers and pulling out the potatoes that are ready and leaving the plants to grow the rest of the potatoes for you. So that's the way I like to harvest, because then obviously the plant keeps growing and it keeps growing more potatoes for you. And then in spring, it's, you know, it's ready to go. So this system allows me to keep it going all through winter, even if the plants aren't doing much growth when it's very cold. They are certainly growing right up into winter, and they will certainly take off straight away in spring. I don't know how cold a climate you could push this system to. I suspect if you covered it well enough and have active compost in there, that even in very cold climates, or, you know, obviously not, I don't know. I'd love to know if people have tried something like this, how far you can push it, what sort of temperatures you can get to, if it's properly covered and has active compost, because active compost produces heat. And there's quite a lot of compost in there. There's probably, you know, several meters in each side. So it is actually quite warm in there. When I opened it up, it was very cold this morning. And when I opened it up, it was very warm. Wasn't it, Minky? Was it warm? What do you reckon? So this is what it looks like around the back. And this is where it's joined up. Obviously, you can do a much nicer, neater job, but it's just an idea that I just wanted to get going with, and I had the star pickets left over from pulling out fences. So yeah, I just whacked it in with star pickets. Very simple way to go, and it works. It had to be dug in a little bit because the ground up here is uneven, so you will have to sort of figure out if you've got uneven ground or if you've got a hill. You have to either dig it out or add to the front or something like that. But apart from that, it's a very, very, very simple way of making a potato bed. And at this point is very effective, and I'm really happy with it. And look, it grows cats as well. So we'll come back to this in summer and have another look and see how it's going. But it's, you know, the main purpose of it is to have potatoes over winter. And as I say, even if you don't, even if they're not actively growing over winter, I suspect they will actually grow over winter when I set this up properly. I want to have a wider sheet of plastic that goes all the way down, and I will attach it at the bottom to posts. So, or pieces of wood. So you can see where I've used this post just to weigh it down. Where I've used this post to weigh it down, I'm actually going to wrap it around the post and attach it with another piece of wood to the post. So then it can be rolled over the top, probably use a lighter piece of wood on the other side, roll it up when it's no longer needed and store it down here, and then it can just be rolled over the top again. But I haven't done that yet because I'm going to get a wider sheet of plastic, because this is all I can get in my local area. A local Mitre 10 had this greenhouse plastics, perfectly good stuff. It's just a little bit narrow for this job, so I'll have to go online and order some much wider stuff, and then I'll be able to cover this whole thing and keep it even warmer in there. You tell them. The neighbours are doing things to sheep this morning, and she doesn't approve, do you? Do you approve? No, you don't approve of much that goes on outside of here, do you? Good girl. So in a nutshell, that's what I'm doing. That's my upcycled potato garden, and I will pop in some old footage, both of the old way that I did it and of when I actually started this, to show you the construction process. But it's very, very, very simple. You can do something like this with any kind of, you could do it in this, you could do it in half a tank without cutting it, but I like the way I've done it here because it's really good access here from the front. You can get right in. So this panel is here to keep the geese out, but I just remove it. I just move it. It just sort of it just slots in there behind the star pickets. Again, it's all very dodgy. If you had someone who's handy and good at building, they could probably make something much nicer. Or if you are handy and good at building, you can probably make something much nicer. But I like this because I like this V shape. It allows me to walk right in here and see, and get right into these beds. Just a very, very handy system for me. Very simple and very handy. But as I said, you could certainly make a potato garden in any old water tank. And you can still cover it, of course. You can still put the plastic over the top, just not as easy access. And this is too high. This is probably, I don't know how high, but it comes up to my chest, so it's way too high for potato growing. I'm actually do have plans for this one. So this was already here when I got the place. It was around the back, and on its side, it's bigger than it looks. It's probably about 3 meters across. So I basically moved that from where it was and have put it here, and it needs to be dug into the ground a little bit because it's very high. And then again, gradually we'll compost stuff in there, and this will definitely be a garden bed. I just haven't quite decided what yet. So this is how high this one is. It's way too big, way too high to comfortably access. So I will be digging this one in or chopping it down. So that's it there. My new potato garden. Very simple, very upcycled, completely upcycled, even down to the compost, which has a lot of cardboard. It's got household scraps, all that sort of stuff. Anything that's come in a cardboard box, I either reuse the box or compost it. So it's got lots of things like that in there. Everything's upcycled and reused except for the plastic. I did buy the greenhouse plastic new, but that's very, very tough, resilient plastic, and it's meant to last for a very long time. I ran out of the reused stuff I had. Okay, friends, thank you so much for joining me. I've really enjoyed showing you my potato garden. I really like things like this that reuse stuff that otherwise wouldn't get, a second life. I hate seeing things like that in the tip. So it's not beautiful, it's not brand new, it's not shiny, but it really does the job quite well. And I'm really happy with it. And we're getting through winter, and those potato plants are still alive and are actually starting to take off already. And we're not even in spring yet. So it means I'll get potatoes much earlier than I otherwise would have. And the other side of it is coming along really nicely. It's composting, so I'm going to get potatoes in there. So I'll do a bit of a staggered planting. I'll get potatoes in there soon. All right, well, thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already subscribed, really love it. If you could subscribe down below, completely free. Just lets Facebook algorithm know that you're interested, and it will show you my new videos, hopefully. I put out a video once every sort of 10 days to a fortnight. I was doing more often, but to be honest, it was just getting too hard with everything else I have to do. Also, if you did like the video, if you could give it a like, that also helps me get going a lot. And comment down below and let me know about some recycled, upcycled, reused things that you do in your garden that are working for you. All right, friends, it's a hooroo from me. Until next time, and it's hooroo from... See ya, hooroo.